My name is Tammy Moriarty. I am the Associate Director at the Center to Support Excellence in Teaching at the Graduate School of Education, just right over there. I help to facilitate the EPIC Leadership Fellows and their learning, and I'm very excited today for them to tell you what they have learned. Our work is slightly different. We focused on how to globalize education from a leadership perspective in terms of policies, practices, systems thinking, people we can influence, folks we can talk to. So we learn a lot about adaptive leadership, what it means to work with other folks and really move people in a system. And I see many EPIC faculty, leadership alum in the audience today. So I'm going to have each of our fellows introduce themselves as they present, so we save a little bit of time here. So we will get started with Marcela.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Marcela Murillo. I come from Florida. Yeah, go Gators. I'm the first one in this cohort and in the EPIC program to be from Florida. I'm in the leadership program, and well, first of all, I would like to thank Stanford Global Studies for providing all the instruction, the mentoring throughout an entire year so I can complete this project. Let me tell you a little bit about my project. It's titled Building a Foundation for Global Learning, a Guide to Study Abroad Implementation. I'm going to give you some context. To begin with, I work at Santa Fe College in Gainesville, Florida, which is a mid-sized community college. We serve 13,000 students throughout throughout Bradford and Alachua counties. Although we are a mid-sized school, we have an international education office which consists of only 2 people. Yes, that would be the coordinator, who is a full-time person, and then would be the director, which would be me. So very exciting. We have lots of enthusiasm, not so many resources, but there is the high motivation. However, we do have 8 study abroad programs that run on a yearly basis, and most of them, half of them I run through direct MOUs with institutions from France, Mexico, and now Denmark, and the others are run through third parties. We only have about 90 students who go in these faculty-led programs. We want to increase those numbers, but in order to increase those numbers, we need to increase the number of faculty that are interested in engaging in global initiatives. So how do we do this? To begin with, I started this role last year, and I realized that we did not have any body of norms or any centralized norms, regulations in terms of study abroad, although these programs have been running for more than 10 years. So we need to we realized that we need to standardize the rules for everyone, because as of last year, all of the decisions were made on an individual study basis. So, like the program to Spain, because it's 1 month long, then the faculty are going to get paid this much, or we need 2 faculty to go to this program. And this program is only, the Mexico one, it's only 10 days, therefore we only need 1 faculty, even though we have 15 students there. So it was a beautiful jungle of international initiatives that needs to be straightened up. So the first step to do so is going to be to create a manual. So how do we go about this? First, we acknowledge, along with the supervisor, which is the ABP for liberal arts, what needs to be done. And it was evident that we needed to have a manual. We looked at different manuals that were from comparable institutions. So we looked at first the University of Florida, because as you know, my institution is in Gainesville, Florida, and we got the University of Florida in the same town. And also our college serves as a pipeline for this university. We have an MOU that students who go into liberal arts, they get directly into UF. So that's why we chose UF. We chose we chose Valencia College, although it's twice the size of Santa Fe College. because they got a rigorous program and we have big office on international education, and I also know very well the people that who work there. And we chose the University System of Georgia that have a very comprehensive manual, and geographically they're not that far away. So how do we go about thinking what needs to be done in order to achieve this manual? First off, consultation with the immediate superior. I know, very exciting, right? So that would be the Vice President of Liberal Arts. So we talked to her. We said, what needs to be taken into consideration for this manual, for this draft? And we realized that certain areas were key. First, faculty loading. Are all professors going to be paid the same? And if so, what is the criteria? Academic rigor. Like, are these classes going to be for credit, non-credit? Like, how many credits is the minimum? Then we realized a very tricky topic. I know, per diem. How are these professors going to get paid for going there for their meals? Are we going to use the U.S. State Department rates? Are we going to use the Santa Fe rates, which is not much? So there were some controversial topics in terms of the per diem and the meals. Well, and then we went on. Besides talking about the project, we talked about what's going to be the process. So we said we're going to have a draft from our office that's going to go to the people that the stakeholders, which are people who engage on international initiatives, such as professors, faculty, staff that engage in study abroad, and then have a legal review that's going to be with the office, with an office in our at Santa Fe College, and later it would go to the Board of Trustees, which is a different process because they meet only once a month, and in order to submit documentation to them, you need to submit it like 2 months in advance, so it would take a while. However, we were hopeful when we met last year and we said we're going to get this done in 1 year. Of course, we didn't get it done in 1 year. But I'm still here presenting about it. I'm telling you about my partial success. So we did complete the manual. We did review the literature, the other manuals. We talked about this incisive per diem, loading academic content expectations, the emergency protocols that we didn't even thought of at the beginning, and how to propose a study abroad program. So we did think about all those things. We compared to other manuals. So we completed the manual. We did submit it to faculty and staff who were interested and engaged usually in study abroad. However, we did not receive any feedback from them. We gave them 3 weeks, and I don't know if it was beautifully done, and it didn't need any corrections, or it was lack of interest, but we didn't receive any feedback. We'll see how that plays in the near future. So now the next step, now that we have this immaculate draft, is to submit it to the legal review, which we know it's not going to take 1 month or 2 months. It should be a long time. So I am there submitting it to the legal department, and hopefully within next year it will be approved by the Board of Trustees and we can implement it. So throughout all this process, I learned so much, and I am thankful to have a mentor, to have Tammy that we met regularly, and for those long Teams meetings in which I could tell her about all these tiny meetings that I was having and all these stakeholders, what they were telling me. I learned that institutional change takes time, way longer than one expects. It's important to identify who are the allies, who are committed to internationalization in the college, who are willing to take that time, who is going to give you a feedback when you request one. Collaboration is key. Nothing can be done alone, even if you're in a leadership role. And patience and persistence is essential. I want to thank this program because as I'm very new in a leadership position in my college. I was given the tools to survive, and I think partially successfully with this project. And thank you so much for the program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcela. So you got the first-hand experience of what it means to be in the administration role, right? All right. So now we have Nicole Trevena Flores.
Hi, my name is Nicole Trevena Flores. I'm with Southeast Community College in Lincoln, Nebraska. And every time I tell someone I'm from Lincoln, Nebraska, and in global ed, I get this face. So hence my title. It is quite the juxtaposition at my institution. So I'm at our metro campus, which is about 300,000 people in the city, not the campus. And then we also have 2 rural locations that are very rural. We have ag centers, we have cattle and horses, and so quite a difference between the 3 campuses that I'm working with. So just keep that in mind as we talk about this today. I came into this role about 5 years ago, right at the height of COVID. So that's been fun. And I'm actually an office of one half. I don't know if you noticed that. I'm also department chair. Some days I'm not sure which half is running the show. But where it began is actually fairly minimal. And I don't want to say, so my goal was to internationalize our strategic plan. These are the areas that you can see where you can see some notion of internationalization. And it is minimal. And that's not, I think, with any ill intent. I think there was no voice at the table. So this was my opportunity to be that voice. So what I did was to look to CCID's framework for internationalization. And I pulled a focus group together about 1.5 years ago to say, where are we? And we were mostly at a seeking level in terms of our college. And I was pretty happy with that, actually, because, again, we are in Nebraska, and it's a lot to move the needle some days. But it was really important to start there and figure out where did we need to go. And this framework really provided that for us. So one of the first things that I did was just say, could I please be on the strategic planning committee? I thought that then I would have the role of saying, hey, here's how we internationalize. I was quite wrong. I needed to be a very objective member of that team. But what it did teach me was that I needed to say, hey, could I please present to our strategic planning committee on the interests that feature global education? And had I not been involved in that team, I would not have known that. And then it also allowed me along the way to come in and advise on the objectives that we were going to be utilizing to say, hey, these are some elements where we could add some internationalization. Here's some wording. Here's some verbiage that we could add to really make this lean into this internationalization process. Through that, I was able to be invited to present to our board, which I think is really important to, again, get those interests and efforts in front of them so that they know they're there. And when I did my presentation to our team, I really was asking for, across the board, some sort of objectives that really looked at our leadership and policy. And I think you'll see here in a few minutes that there is definitely some elements to that. Looking at diversifying our staffing and recruitment, which is hugely important to internationalization. And we weren't putting a lot of effort toward that just simply by not having the means. We have a very small office for HR as well. Also looking at global competencies and how can we make this available to our faculty and staff. There is an interest, but there's a training need. And so hopefully through our strategic plan, we can align with that better. Wanting to make sure we had representation across the college, not just in the arts and sciences, which is where my background lies, but also very much predominantly in our trades. And I'm excited to say that next year we will have our first study abroad for our John Deere program to Finland. So very excited. We also are going to be doing more efforts to support our international students. We don't have an international student office as of right now, and so working on that. And then also, again, working to support our study abroad. In my time, I've been at my college for 15 years. I've never seen more than 1 or 2 study abroads, and I'm excited to say that this summer there will actually be 4 happening. And all over. We have Morocco, we have Costa Rica, we have Ireland, and we have Paris. So exciting things are happening. So this kind of shows you our shift from where we were to where we've gone. And I just want to point out in 2.4, there is specifically mention of study abroad, and that is not something that's ever existed in our strategic plan. And you can see kind of throughout these objectives that there is more of an alignment to those things that I mentioned earlier, and internationalization of our faculty and staff, and internationalization college-wide, which includes communication and belonging. And those things are key to internationalization. These are more of those. I'm not going to read those. I was a teacher before I was in leadership, and I know you don't want me to read to you. But again, just focusing on overall wellness of our students. If we're going to be inviting more exchange and more international students, we need to be aware that we need to create a campus that is welcoming and inviting and supportive of those needs. We can't just say, hey, you're here in the middle of Nebraska and we're not going to support you. That doesn't work, and it's not sustainable. And I really like 9.5, and I think it's pretty exciting to have us as a premier community college in the nation. So for that to be a goal, internationalization has to be a piece of that, right? So I think it opens the door to so many opportunities and possibilities, and I'm really excited about it. So some of what I've gained, a big piece of this is that if we have more broad language in our strategic plan, it really allows for more development opportunities. I think I went in thinking it needed to say things very specifically about internationalization, and I needed to really step back and understand that can look many different ways, and I'm okay with that. A huge part of this growth is having communications and transparency and talking to everyone. And this introvert had a hard time with that, but I'm learning all the time. I've also gained a much deeper understanding through that strategic planning team of what's happening behind the scenes and understanding who I need to tap for certain things, but also why things aren't happening at the speed that I want, as Marcela mentioned as well. And then again, similar to Marcela's, that collaboration piece is huge, especially as an office of one. I have to really work with the different parties to get those things moving and to make the needle progress. So my next step after, I should say our strategic plan is still in draft mode technically. It requires one more approval from our board, but hopefully, knock on some wood, we will get approved. But the next step then is to develop a strategic plan just for our global education department, and then continue to develop our partnerships, increase our supports for our international students, increase our training opportunities for faculty and staff, collaboration, all of those things. But I also did want to not end today without thanking Stanford. This has been an amazing experience. And Kristen, you've been incredibly supportive. Tammy, there's no way I would have made it this far without your mentoring. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, we have one more speaker before we stop for Q&A, and then we will continue. So we're following our little plan here. So we have Richard Lubben.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, everybody. So I'm at the College of Sequoias, and that's about an hour east of Fresno, if you're not sure where that is. The Sequoias might be misleading a little bit because we are an agricultural area, and we have about 11,000 full-time students. We have two centers, one in Hanford and one in Tulare, and a working farm in Tulare. So it's a very large agricultural area, and actually produce the most dairy products in the United States. So this resonates with me because I came from a very small town in Northern California, 5,000 people, Quincy, and my family was agricultural background. And growing up, vacation or travel vacation or the concept of either of those that isn't work related was not a part of our conversation. That was for rich people, and it was just not accessible. So I remember, and I'm giving you a little bit of background why this is important to me. I remember my senior year on the basketball team, we were going to Chico to play in a basketball tournament. And I remember being very nervous because we were going to the big city. I said, Chico's not that big, But in my mind, it was like, wow, this is, I've never traveled before. That's terrifying. And I kind of enjoyed it. And then first time I, went to Sacramento was going to college. And again, that was the next big city, terrifying. And in the 80s, it wasn't as big as it is now, But in the Central Valley, a lot of our students have that similar background. And I hear from students, travel to LA, we've never been to LA. And so the concept of traveling abroad or even understanding diverse perspectives is kind of a foreign perspective. But in my own life, it was so valuable to me and changed the way I am, my education. Ended up studying arts and going to Mexico and living there. And it was just so impactful. I want to do what I can to help support that opportunity for our students. So we do not have a global area of study or study abroad or anything. So I'm, as a dean, trying to figure out something that it's not going to fall on me because I don't have the bandwidth to do that, but I'm trying to figure out some sort of collaboration that would allow for our students an opportunity to either study virtually, some sort of collaboration virtually, or maybe potentially physical study abroad, which wasn't part of my project. So the idea started a couple years ago, bringing in a Fulbright scholar from the University of Seville, Spain. And he has a background in multimedia, travels the world, amazing artist, great speaker, great person. And we brought him in for a semester to develop some sort of virtual reality exchange, thinking how easy that was going to be because we had all the VR headsets, which we purchased over COVID area to, connect people safely and everything. Then realizing there's some technology and processes behind all that doesn't make it as easy as it might have seemed on the commercial. So we had all these headsets. He came in over a semester, figured it out, kind of, not perfectly, but was able to do some collaborative, VR learning, connected with colleagues in Spain. So they did some VR meetings. And we had a good foundation, I think, as he left after the end of the semester. And then a couple of our art faculty were interested in it. But again, those technical issues kept popping up. So we're still trying to work through those. But we do have 2 art professors and a literature professor who have started with collaborations with counterparts at the University of Seville. Our English professor actually did a collaboration where they had students paired up and did, originally it was going to be Zoom, but it ended up being through WhatsApp, which was much easier for international video chats. And so we had several English students that did like a comparison of the movie Roma and talked about the intersection of living in a community of Spanish-speaking and English-speaking cultures. And so that was very interesting. We want to expand it a little bit. The 2 art professors, they collaborated on the idea of drawing and collaborating digitally simultaneously, which has become a little bit of a challenge. But they think they have an idea, and so they're going to integrate that into a course shared project in the fall. So I was excited to hear about that. Originally, I thought this was going to be much easier, but as one former dean told me many years ago, you can't make faculty do anything they don't want to do. So my challenge now is to find faculty who want to do this. This was a photo of the end ceremony of the Fulbright Scholar when he had an ending art exhibit at the gallery, and all the students showed off their collaborative virtual reality or emerging technology projects, which was really exciting. Through his stay, we signed an MOU of cultural exchange with the University of Seville, and Ramon was the professor. He and I presented at the virtual annual conference of the Fulbright, kind of describing the project. And then the photo in the middle, on the right-hand side, is the Dean of Fine Arts at the University of Seville, Ramon on the left, and me in the middle. And just had a wonderful week there. I spoke to a few classes, did a workshop with faculty on AI and how we use AI in administration and education. And they are open to exploring, different cultural exchange opportunities, including possibly a physical trip abroad, which would be super nice. But again, we have to find faculty and go through some of the processes that some of my EPIC colleagues have been talking about. So with the faculty engagement and development, what we did accomplish was some beginnings of cross-discipline collaborations. And I think cross-discipline is the key. And I love using art as that connecting language, that common language. And then we want to use VR if that's possible. We're talking with Tammy and her colleagues about doing an AI cohort of faculty training in the next year. So I'm really excited about that. And maybe the idea of including some international perspectives in that. And then the image on the right was one of our own students, community college students, working with VR and doing a kind of a performance where the artwork was projected as he was, simultaneously creating art, and everybody was in the gallery viewing. And so that was really exciting, I think. So as this started out only focusing on the virtual collaborations, I got kind of excited about the possibility of actually doing a study abroad program. So without any resources, any staff, any history of this, and me being overwhelmed and not being able to, spearhead it myself, I said, okay, let's talk about collaborations, because one, that's funner to do, I think. And if you don't have the resources or expertise, reach out to other people. So I knew our Fresno City regional partners actually did have a full-time person in their international studies program, and they did study abroad programs for. And so I said, hey, what if we send a few students your way in during the summer? Okay, great, that works. And so kind of researched a little bit about financial aid. Do students need any type of leave of absence? Everything seemed great with that, no problems. And so I started talking to her, and she gave me some really good tips on how to set up this step-by-step without a lot of energy or staff. So I learned a lot through that. And then last week I had a Zoom meeting with her, and she said 7 of our students are signed up for this summer. So I was just super happy about that. And so the plan is to interview those students when they come back, advocate for funding, and I'm sure they're going to have great experiences. And when, our senior management hear about how wonderful that experience was, hopefully that will loosen up a little bit of funding and staff support. So these are just some basic outcomes and the potential kind of timeline and impact. So, went to Spain, met with people. They're already looking at sending people or faculty back in our area. The online virtual platform did launch, and so there's 6 or 7 different universities across the world that are doing simultaneous type virtual lessons. And our Fulbright scholar is handling all that because I was like, I can't do it. He's like, yeah, I got it. I'm all over it. So he's, I don't know when he sleeps, but he's amazing. And then the other thing that kind of opened up was the conversations about curriculum, about faculty to faculty. When I visited there, they're really renowned for their drawing. And so my background is painting and drawing also. So I learned a lot about their curriculum. And then our art faculty are talking to them about, what might they revise or consider. So that's been very positive. Again, working on the study abroad. And then just the idea of where to go next is really exciting. So my next plan is to find people who want to do this and then figure out what support I can do to make that possible. Our regional, and just lastly, our regional other partners besides Fresno State Center, we have Porterville College, which is a very rural, small college about 30 minutes away from us. Cuesta College over on the coast, San Luis Obispo. All 4 of us are talking about how we can share these resources and potentially do some sort of consortium, maybe cost share, send one faculty member from one place, one to the other. Best practice was sending 2 faculty at a time, 2 different courses, do summer study abroad short term, so 2 to 3 weeks at the country, and then the rest would be the entire summer online. So we think it's possible. We just have to figure out a couple details, but I'm really excited about the potential.
Okay, at this time, we're going to pause for some Q&A for Richard, Nicole, and Marcela before we continue with our panel. So I will open the floor for questions, and as they come up, just feel free to answer. Okay.
Hi, we are from the Central Valley as well, from Modesto, and I was just wondering if you were looking for other consortium members for the study abroad program. And I was also curious, have you run into issues with your risk management department, and how do you navigate those challenges with liability, I guess, and students, because they seem to be increasing?
We hope that all students will behave well, and faculty as well. No, just kidding. So one thing that I learned from the State Center person is that they typically go through a program that is like an outside sponsor where they have the liability included. They said larger places sometimes do it in-house, but they said for sure when you start, go through that other vendor because they have the liability. They do all the hotel and all the logistics to it. The cost is built in, so it's a little bit more for students, but it's worthwhile, and it will at least create an opportunity where you can get something started, and then once it is bigger, then you can examine other ways. Yeah, and absolutely, we'd love to include you.
The vendor.
I can't remember off the top of my head, Margaret, and I can't remember her last name either. But we'll connect. I'll give you my card and email me, and totally get you together. Yeah.
Good. Pick the other question. Ben.
Yeah, I had a question for Nicole. You mentioned the John Deere program in Finland. So does that mean that you were able to create a partner with John Deere as a way to supplement or lower costs for students? I was just really curious about that because we are really struggling with keeping costs down for our students. So,
Well, this is actually the first time we'll be traveling with no third-party vendor, so that's a little nerve-wracking. But we were lucky that our one of our John Deere instructors his family is from Finland, and so he has lots of connections there. As of right now, no, they're not paying for anything, but we were able to keep it to about $3,500 actually for 10 days, which includes nearly everything except for a few lunches, because we didn't include a third-party vendor, and most of where we're traveling because of the nature of the trip doesn't actually include something that a third-party vendor would provide. So currently, no, but we would love for that to happen. If you know someone, let me know.
Other questions?
I guess this is kind of a John Deere question, but it's really for all of you. I'm a humanities faculty member, but my research and teaching is frequently involves collaborations with STEM faculty. So I've been lucky to go on many campus abroad in my career, but I've always been frustrated that my STEM colleagues are almost routinely at my college excluded from that. So I wondered if there are any examples, or if you've tried to work on this. They do exist. I mean, you can do a sustainability program, a climate change program, which automatically links to STEM faculty. But I just wanted to put a shout out also for internationalizing the curriculum within the sciences, as well as my dear home, the humanities.
Did you have a question for the group? Or I think I heard it embedded in there. Are there examples of?
Have you worked on that? I mean, was the John Deere program, I guess, for example, was the John Deere program, sorry, the question didn't come out.
Sorry.
Is the John Deere program an example of an international, of a campus abroad in Finland that includes sciences, technology, as well as humanities?
Right. I mean, they're visiting farms, they're visiting several manufacturers. So yes, I have actually tried to work with my STEM faculty a little bit, but I think they are very overworked. At least at our college, the lab ratio is very high. And so they're constantly in labs or in the classroom. And so it's been a little tricky, but I think there's an interest there. One of the programs that we worked with in Ireland is very willing to develop very program specific travel. So I would encourage you to connect with me afterward. I can tell you who they are.
Hi, this is a question for all the panelists. What are some of the best practices that you've discovered in terms of getting grants and funding for students interested in study abroad? Have you been able to reach out to alumni, other businesses?
Before you answer, I think I just want to open this up. Elvin and Joseph, who has not presented yet, feel free to answer as well, especially as these are some of the general questions. So, all right. So would you repeat your question one more time for the panelists?
I'm Samuel McCoy, by the way. What are some of the best practices that you've encountered in terms of getting funding for students interested in study abroad? grants from perhaps alumni donations or collaboration with outside businesses?
Go ahead.
So I'm from the Anza College, and I think at the Anza, one of the approach that we use is really doing this work in community. I know that we work very closely with our foundation, our district foundation, in regards to hopefully they could build some capacity with donors or people they know within the community that really has been sort of champion for global studies and study abroad. And I feel like our fundraising effort, even though it's minimal, it does give us some leverage in supporting our students. So doing some creative fundraising from the ground and also working with the foundation really worked for us.
We haven't had any grants specifically, but we've got a scholarship that was recently endowed and for study abroad. And what we've done is to do fundraising opportunities throughout the year. Every fall, we have a dinner at our student-ran restaurant, and that's really successful. We invite our board of trustees, and it's been hugely beneficial to our scholarship. We also this year piloted 2 5K run opportunities, and that was very beneficial as well. Our president came out and ran, and I think those experiences not only fundraise, but also open the eyes to the community of what we're doing. And then we also held a trivia night, and that was really successful. We asked a local trivia master MC to come to the college, and we grabbed some food from Costco, and it was a great event, and that gets a great turnout as well. So those 4 events have really supported our study abroad scholarships. Joseph Cannon.
I'm from Laney College. And during the fellowship, I found out that there are funds available within learning communities. So, for example, at my college, I engaged the Dean for Student Success, who is over the Umoja program. And they have funds specifically for study abroad, and they are making a commitment. And I would talk about that in my presentation to assist students who will be interested.
And for me in Florida, working with the foundation has been great. So half of the students that go on a study abroad trip, they have a scholarship. Well, I mean, half, I think it's great, of $1,000 or $1,500. And what I've learned is that you can go to the individual departments and ask for professional development funds for the faculty. So this way, the cost of the faculty would not go into the students, and that's the model that we're having in Florida now. And this way, it benefits the student in lowering the cost of their trip overall.
You have another question here?
Thank you. Yeah, I was just wondering about if you could just share your experiences with thinking about different locations that you choose for study abroad. I'm interested in Central American studies in particular. We had been having a conversation with Nicole earlier about trips to Guatemala and Costa Rica, and I know that a lot of places that I've seen have offered trips, particularly to Europe. But I'm wondering more, like particularly within Africa, within places in like I heard of a trip planned to Cuba, which I thought would be really interesting. So I was just wondering if you could just speak a little bit about some of these more these locations, particularly around student interest as well, right?
Okay, well, I can start with my story that is not very uplifting, but I guess real. So we tried implementing a study abroad trip to Bolivia. With construction, students would go to the salt flats and learn about building with salt blocks. It was a beautiful program geared to the construction students, work for development. No students signed up for the program. So it was fail. We learned in my college that it would be the first time for most students going abroad and taking them to a more popular destination than Bolivia, like Spain or Japan is very popular now. It's more appealing, and unfortunately, we couldn't make it work for that. But maybe the experience of my colleagues is different.
No. Go ahead, Joseph.
My focus is in Africa, in Sierra Leone specifically, there's some bias there. I'm originally from Sierra Leone. But I, depending on the advertisements that you see on the websites or posters on campus, there's very little traffic in that direction. And that's a gap that needs to be filled. There's a lot of history in Sierra Leone, especially for the African-American student population. And there are linkages that can be made. You, as most of you know, these days, there are DNA studies that will locate based on genealogy and all those things where someone is originally from, say, in Africa. And if I do that DNA test and I'm originally, or the bulk of the percentages points to Sierra Leone, I will be interested out of curiosity to visit Sierra Leone. So we hope that that will get students interested. I've been working with the Emoja program, and we're trying to make sure we have students, take advantage of that. There are several, study abroad programs across the state. There's none for Sierra Leone, so I'm trying to bridge that gap.
For us, cost is a huge factor for our students. So the Costa Rica, I think I mentioned to you, is for first-generation students. So it was really important that we kept it to $3,500 or less. And by going in that region, it allowed for that. And we noticed that we have a large Hispanic population in Nebraska. And so there was a lot of interest. In fact, about 2/3 of the students attending are of Latin American descent in some variation. So that was really neat to see themselves represented similarly. With our Morocco trip, it was actually, we posed it to the students that the instructors were welcoming to say, here's this country. I think they said England, Morocco, and maybe Ecuador. And the students selected Morocco that were interested. We have a trip going next summer to Kenya and Tanzania. And we don't get as much traction in those other locations versus Europe. But most of our Europe trips are 4,000 to 5,000 minimum. So that really makes a difference for our students. We also got a grant recently to support internationalization focused on Latin America. So we have a trip going in 2027 to Ecuador, and that'll offset the cost as well because it'll fund the staff traveling with the students.
Okay, we have time for one more quick question. I see a hand in the back.
Thanks. Scott McLeod, World University and School.org. How might it be possible, as a follow-on to this question of to tie in these trips to both career and diplomas at your community colleges and subsequent diplomas, maybe even as a reward? Could these physical trips abroad in this internationalization thinking be tied to careers and diplomas in any way, shape, or form? Or is there experience in your colleges in these regards? Thanks.
So we are unique in that we only use a global studies call number for our travel classes exclusively. So even John Deere will have a global studies 2980. That last year we applied to be part of our gen ed core. And so then students are able to use financial aid as part of their gen ed classes. I think that makes a huge difference for the opportunities for students. We also, 3 years ago, unveiled a global studies certificate, so they can add that to almost any degree that they're already doing. And the majority of it is gen eds that they're already taking. It's just, instead of U.S. history, you take world history. And so those two pieces, I think, have helped us to gain a lot of traction for students as well.
Likewise, in my institution, if students engage in international work, whether it's through classes that are denominated as international education classes, or study abroad trips, they have lots of points, and at the end of when they graduate, they get a medallion, and it shows up in their transcripts as international education awardee.
So, for students that are going to get a degree in African American studies, for example, at Laney, in our discussions, there are certain classes that they need to take. African American studies courses. So as part of the negotiations, one of the things that we are trying to do, one or two of those courses that students would usually take in a traditional classroom, it will be, we'll have the option for students to do a study abroad for that particular course. So you have the option. You can take the classroom-based course, or you could take the study abroad course. I mean, it's a single course, but it will go towards your degree or certificate.
Okay, these are great questions. We are going to continue with our panel right now. So we are going to have Joseph Koroma from Laney College. And we'll set up his presentation. Great.
All right. Hello, everyone. I titled my presentation America to Africa, or From America to Africa, Study Abroad Proposal to Sierra Leone. The goal of this proposal is to explore and develop mutually beneficial educational partnerships between Laney College and one or more institutions in West Africa. And I believe that such a partnership will establish academic and social linkages between students, administrators at the home campus, which is Laney College, and the host campus, which in Sierra Leone, for example. I started very broad. We started engagements with institutions in Liberia and Sierra Leone. And as time went on, I narrowed that to Sierra Leone, and Liberia will be a future or an expanded proposal. It was probably too much, and I think I stretched myself too thin. After a few meetings, I figured out, let me focus on Sierra Leone to get a quick win. So that is Sierra Leone on the, there's an image there, very, it's coastal. Sierra Leone is found on the west coast, on the Atlantic Ocean. And you can see there it's pretty tiny. In terms of size, it is approximately the size of South Carolina. So it's pretty tiny, about 7 million people. But we have a lot to offer. The history of Sierra Leone is really, really interesting. And it was founded, and we say founded, obviously there are, questions about that. But it was established by the British to accommodate repatriated. Let me step back a little bit. In about 1808, there's an act that abolished slavery in all British colonies. Not across the world. Not everybody agreed with it, but the British Parliament made that step. And the decision was that if, somebody who is enslaved sets their foot on British soil, then you were free. And, whether it's in Canada or the Caribbean or Africa. Now, not all countries agreed with that. So the British set up a naval base in Freetown, whereby obviously the British Navy was very powerful, but they intercepted slave ships that were still transporting or participating in the slave trade. And if they captured the ship, all the occupants were transported to Freetown and they were free. So that was the origin of Freetown, Sierra Leone. So there are several folks repatriated from other areas around the British Empire, and then they settled in Freetown. This has been over 200 years ago. So there are all those historic facts that I think can be explored, and people don't read about them these days. But those are some of the things that I think students visiting Sierra Leone or participating in the study abroad trip will benefit from. So these are my goals: to set up a study abroad partnership between Laney College and the University of Sierra Leone, develop financial aid package from both traditional and non-traditional financial aid methods. So what my background is in financial aid, and that is the primary means by which students are able to fund study abroad. But there are all the non-traditional methods that I mentioned early through the Umoja program or other grants. So we hope to leverage that, and there are techniques to be able to do that. And then finally, to take a faculty-led study abroad trip, students from Laney College or any other community college that a student may be attending in California to make the trip to Sierra Leone. So those are my three, goals and objectives. So I've broken these down, some of the things that I've done over the past year, and some of those that may be coming through. So in terms of the objectives, number one, I have engaged faculty, most in geography and African American studies. I wear multiple hats. My background is also in geography. I've served as an adjunct professor for many, many years. And fortunately, the two faculty members in my college that I have engaged, one a geography faculty, another African American faculty, are all alums of the EPIC program. And I would like to mention Mark Razon, who is also an alumni, one of the geography faculty at Laney College that I've engaged for advice on how we can implement this. And there's another faculty, but they are not present right here. So that is the what we've been doing fall 2024, spring 2025. In terms of financial aid package, we hope that we would have a combo class whereby students would take 3 units of geography, 3 units of African American studies for 6 units. Usually in financial aid, if you get 6 units in the summer, you get extra financial aid. So that will boost your possibility to fund the course. So those are the 2 courses that we hope to combine. And I mentioned the Umoja program director. They are willing to not only help students by funding them, but they also hope to, if possible, pay for some of the faculty who would attend this trip or participate in the study abroad program. And then the third one is to organize the faculty-led trip. We need a minimum of about 2 faculty and at least about 25 students to make the trip. So we are engaging in that this spring and the fall. We hope to get the numbers to make the trip. So I don't speak or understand Mandarin or Cantonese, but my understanding is that there's a Chinese character that represents challenge. Is also the same character that represents opportunities, if I'm right on that, but that's what I understand. So I recently lost my dad, and I visited Sierra Leone, and I figured out, it is a challenge, but I used that as an opportunity. So I visited the Vice Chancellor at the University of Sierra Leone, who is very, very much interested in the study abroad program. We had a war in Sierra Leone for many years, and the traffic, prior to the war, there were a lot of international students, but we've seen that is much lower now. So they are interested in receiving students. So these are some of the pictures in my interaction with them. That's the gentleman to the right in black is the Vice Chancellor of the University of Sierra Leone. So he is willing to host students in the summer. And that is also a picture outside his office with some of the other staff. This is the residence hall that we went to inspect, that will be able to accommodate students. There are about 2 of these, and they can that will cut down on our cost. Instead of students staying in a hotel, by staying in these residence halls, we'll be able to cut down some of the cost. We are inspecting the building. They are just showing me around there, and we hope that it will be a successful trip. But this is what we. Feedback from students, faculty, and administrators have been very positive on both sides. We look forward to full implementation of the study abroad, and we look forward to sustaining it in the future, not only in Sierra Leone, but maybe adding Liberia on there. But that's a brief synopsis of my proposal and study. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. And up next, we have Elvin Ramos from De Anza College.
Hello. I'm Elvin Ramos, currently serving as Dean of Social Sciences and Humanities at De Anza. I just want to say thank you, Stanford School of Global Studies, for this opportunity. It has been such an insightful year. Thank you, Tammy, for all the guidance. We really did have a lot of substantive and fun time together. And then when we see Kristen come into our Zoom, we have to get our act together. We're all scared of Kristen. Thank you, Kristen, for all the directions and the coordinations. I also want to say that this experience has given me a chance to get to know every single one of my colleagues here in the front, as well as the EPIC faculty fellows. It's been such an amazing time to get to know all your projects. Today, I'm not going to talk about study abroad a little bit, but I will talk about it a little bit, but it's more about storytelling and the global experience. So when I started at De Anza College, April 2020, it was in the beginning of COVID, and really all throughout that time, I really trying to figure out like how to fit into the college while actually managing virtually. And of course, the pandemic and in the wake of the death of George Floyd, all of us were in many ways was trying to find some connections. And in spring 2020, we started some conversation about beginning a series of conversation at De Anza. And this conversation actually led into a conversation that I had with my fellow colleague in Washington, D.C., having him to be the first speaker in order for us to begin this dialogue. So the conversation and the dialogue really geared into more of, there's an equity focus, but social justice focus. We wanted to make sure that there were topics of inclusivity, of course, confront structural racism, not just in our campus, but in terms of the global context and what that means for our students and the core focus of what we do in the community colleges. We had our core objectives that this will be in many ways some sort of a very safe space. So it's not necessarily recorded. And our commitment was to continue this conversation. So today we have about a little bit over 120 speakers. It's still going on. And I felt like at this moment in time, about last year, this was an important part of my life at De Anza and also part of other people's lives in terms of those who have given us the opportunity of their time to share their story, to capture all of that story. So the Momentum series is actually a series that has been many ways a brand at De Anza, right? And last year when I got into this program, I was very much ambitious in many ways to capture or do this project with all 100 speakers, right? And I remember we're walking around campus during the tour, and I'm talking to alumni of this program, and they're like, "Are you really going to do 100 speakers? Are you really going to capture all their stories?" And I'm like, "Yes." And then by the end of the day, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna stick to 20." And Tammy got into my ears, and she's like, "Yeah, let's just focus on 20, right?" So what we did over the years is, over the year, that we basically looked at who's who had a theme topic on global equity, cultural resilience, systemic justice, and we wanted to make sure that while this is geared to sort of the global curriculum, we wanted to invite faculty or at least look at what's being offered in the liberal arts as well as in the humanities. So purpose and the goal is to really enhance our core materials, whatever we were capturing or whatever we were writing about. We wanted to make sure that that can also be used in the classroom and that there is some multidisciplinary insights and of course, that this work, or at least putting this sort of stories together, will also inspire some critical thinking. You know, there's a power, as you all know, in storytelling, and there's also a power in global experience, right? And for me, the Momentum series has been quite an inspiring sort of journey for many of us at the college. These were sort of our timeline. When we began the year, we started with selecting the 20 speakers, right? With the help of Tammy, really guiding me during this process. We sort of aligned the work with, of course, the theme of equity. Equity, no matter what happens, will always be the core of the community colleges. Inclusion, of course, and global interconnectedness. We were trying to highlight narratives, so we took all of our notes over the years and somewhat tried to read them and sort of categorize them in many ways. And we began interviewing the 20 speakers starting October, all the way down right before we went to our holiday break. And then when we got back, we're also functioning the quarter system. So when we got back in winter, we collaborated with all of those featured speakers to really refine some of their key messages that we heard during their session and also at the interviews. And at this point, I was sort of engaging a lot of different stakeholders because I was trying to get faculty to help me in many ways. And I'm very grateful to my division's faculty who were part of the equity core team that stepped up. And then now, of course, we are trying to continue the work. We have not yet began sort of the writing process. We have all the archives of interviews and all of that assets that we're going to be combining into hopefully a book that would publish, and then and of course try to create some podcasts that hopefully both the book and the podcast will be housed at our California History Center on campus, which house all of our special archives for local histories as well. We did run into a lot of challenges, right? This Momentum series, we had support from the foundation through previous leadership, grant funded us, and we were able to scale it out. But we lost that through the change of leadership. And then we were saying to ourselves, well, how can we continue the work? We were very much so close into California Humanities. In the beginning of the year, they encouraged us to apply for a grant. And we were so hopeful. And then 2 weeks later, that did not happen. And I think you all know why. So moving forward, this work that we're trying to do in the summer is really just to continue the conversation. I am so grateful as well that a lot of my colleagues here, including Joseph, Nicole, and Marcela, has been part of this series and will be part of this series. So I try to, as much as I can, to integrate just different experiences of individuals that will really be, in many ways, their stories can be influential and inspiration for many of our students and the work of our faculty scholarship. Thank you.
Okay, we have one more speaker who could not be here today because she is off with her students on an international trip, right? But we have a recording from Stacye Fraser Thompson from Jefferson State Community College, and she will be presenting by video.
Hi, Epic Fellows. I'm Stacye Fraser Thompson from Birmingham, Alabama. I work at Jefferson State Community College. I am so sorry I'm missing the symposium with all of you, but I'm on a program exchange in the Netherlands as we speak. And I'm sorry I couldn't join you, but I'm going to be on an amazing experience, and it's a wonderful opportunity for my college. I want to give you a brief background on my project and the things that developed it. We've only been doing global education since 2016, 2017. We've always had international students since the 60s, but global education engagement has not really been a big part of our portfolio until we started some study abroad in 2017. And COVID helped us develop some other projects in COIL, and we do co-curricular programming through our student groups and our honor societies and things like that. And we've also started a global lecture series and work with community projects such as our Hispanic Heritage Festival, and we also celebrate International Education Week. We originally tried to develop a project like this in 2019, but it was declined by the upper administration at that time. Participating in the EPIC program re-incentivized my interest in developing the Global Studies Certificate or some iteration of the program. Working with my leadership cohort really made me reassess the challenges that were in developing this program through the idea of adaptive and technical challenges. So thinking about the stakeholders that would be involved in this kind of program, where would it benefit? So for the community, we're in metropolitan Birmingham, a city of about 1.1 million people. There is a growing immigrant population. It's grown more than 300% in the last 15 years. That's a lot for a city that's traditionally been a largely black-white community. It does have a great deal of impact. So having projects and things like that might involve service learning, community engagement, and intercultural interaction, that can definitely build ties to the community, between the college and the community, between the students and the faculty in the community. It benefits faculty through their own professional development. They could do things related to research, program development, and give fresh perspectives on the learning design. And it benefits the students because it increases their participation with the college, which helps with retention. It develops their hard and soft skills, potentially gives them credentials, and increases their own global competitiveness. With the original iteration of this program being denied in 2019, one of the things we looked at was putting the Global Engagement Committee as a whole. We reevaluated the structure of this entire idea, how it should be launched, and looked at examples of other models to see what would best fit Jefferson State. So pulling in the elements from the old Global Studies Certificate idea and the research comparing other types of programs that were similar for international studies certificates, some other distinction programs we found, and just kind of looking at the holistic everything that my school offers. We looked at the idea because we wanted to make sure that this would be open and possible for all programs, including career technical education. So for any of our transfer degrees as well as our AAS degrees, and even potentially students that might even be working on certificates if they have enough academic credit. Also, the state of Alabama about 3 years ago got the approval for a program called the Seal of Biliteracy, where we have students who are fully bilingual and they do work in their high school K through 12 to get recognition of that bilingualism. So we decided that we wanted to pull that in, and because we didn't have any other way institutionally that was being used, but they could substitute the Seal of Biliteracy for one of the globalized course contents that we were asking for at least 12 credit hours of academic coursework. Also within that, they could even do independent studies, they could do language, they could do inherently globalized courses like language study, world literature, world history, some of those types of things. But we also wanted to create a mechanism to recognize what faculty were doing for their courses that were having COIL projects or internationalized. We also wanted to make sure that co-curricular activities were being recognized within this to encourage the continuation of them, like our global lecture series, International Education Week, the Hispanic Heritage Festival. And also encouraging in the community, some of the community events we have, like there's a Greek food festival, there's a Hispanic Heritage Festival, there's a Russian regional, cultural festival, that type of thing. So because we're in a metropolitan, we can use some of these elements. And then also a capstone, and we wanted the capstone to be super flexible because there's some students that won't be able to do study abroad. It won't be easy for them, but we have some virtual engagement opportunities. We work with the Institute of Study Abroad Ireland to use their virtual program, the Global Perspectives on the Narratives of Ireland. They could do an independent research project, service learning, working with immigrant communities, or other volunteer activities that they could justify with the campus representative or the faculty person that would be working with them on the final projects. So study abroad is also an element. So we were trying to do something because we have a lot of developed faculty-led program. So they're getting academic credit for that too. But we also want to remain flexible, and we're open to ideas for expansions in this, because we want this program to be flexible and accessible, because there's going to be some students that are limited by time, some students that are limited by finances. So, sometimes hopefully the students will come to us with ideas. So we tried to keep it as open as possible, but at the same time, the core element is developing the global competency skills of the student with a recognition. So after attending the first development workshop back in August of 24, I came back with a lot of ideas, and that's when I started having these dialogues with the Global Engagement Committee, and we spent the fall redeveloping the rubrics and looking at the research and redesigning the overall program presentation idea. But we also got stalled a little bit by people getting busy, because most of us have jobs, and this is an extra project that everybody was volunteering their time for. So from January to February, there was actually December to February, there was not a lot happening, especially because we had the holidays and everything. But I finally got two of the administrators on the committee that agreed to work more directly with me from the Global Engagement Committee on the project. And we decided to revamp how we were doing the approach to the upper administration about the idea. And the biggest thing was that we were going in with the endorsement of the Global Engagement Committee, meaning that we had touchstones on all 4 campuses with these 26 committee members. And we developed the approach. We put a nice presentation together, which you'll see elements of it here in a couple of other slides. And we launched that approval to the dean, the VP of Student Affairs, the Dean of Academic Affairs, and then to the president in March. And compared to what we went through in 2019, it went through very quickly. I think they could see the growth over the last 5 years, and also that this was not requiring the SACS accreditation. They felt that this was an easy approval with all the information, which seems so counterintuitive, but if you've got the right pieces together, and we addressed everything, we tied it into the institutional mission, and we put a lot of data behind it and a lot of support behind it. So all of that, we got it approved. So once that happened, then it's like, oh my gosh, we've got this thing, we've got to launch it. So we morphed the program proposal into an application package and put that out to students in April of 25. Very quick, this is May. But we were trying to give an opportunity to students. We'd been discussing this within some of the student groups we knew had met some of these criteria, that we're actually trying to do recognition for our commencement, which only occurs once a year, for this May. So we had 2 applications so far. It just opened. The deadline hasn't been met yet at the time that I'm doing this recording, so I'm hoping we'll have more. But when graduation occurs in a couple of weeks, we're hoping to have several people that will be part of the recognition of the program. We're still working out the nuts and bolts about how it's going to be recognized in our banner system. But so we kind of did a manual application this year, but we're looking at redeveloping later on how to do the application in an electronic format that's a little easier for submission. So this May the 2nd, we will be having our May graduation, which is, we do a big commencement once a year for summer, fall, and spring graduates. So this will be our first group of students that will have a distinction with some cords, recognizing their participation in the Global Distinction Program. And hopefully by the time this video is seen by you, we will have had the mechanism decided on how to get that posted on. Thank you so much to all my fellow colleagues within the EPIC program. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Oh, so bummed Stacey's not here, because we're going to pause again for questions, Q&A from the audience, but Stacey won't be able to answer them. So if you do have a specific question for Stacey, however, feel free to jot that down somewhere, and I would be happy to pass that along, and I'm sure she will get back to you when she returns. But now, open the floor for questions.
It's not really a question, but a comment, actually, for Elvin. It's a wonderful idea in terms of the speaker series and sort of internationalizing that. I was wondering if you've thought about elevating our students' voices, because our students are international. And, I'm thinking very similar to perhaps you said podcast. One of the ideas maybe that just popped up in my head that may be of interest to you and for others here is like NPR StoryCorps and having them be interviewed, right, by our journalist students, digital media folks, even bringing in our ethnic studies faculty, political science, and then they can share that and archive that. I think it would just be wonderful to elevate our student voices and center our student voices in this work that's so critical, especially now in the 21st century. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's funny you said that, but maybe I'll do that for another fellowship. Sanjita is here, one of my faculty in our division. In our division, we do have, as I mentioned, our equity core team. So our equity core team also holds quarterly student voices at our campus. We're having one actually this Wednesday. And the topic about that is really student experience, right? They get a chance to tell us, administrators and faculty, what may be some of the things that we may not be doing right in the classroom or in the ecosystem of our community college. And that has really drove us to do new sort of surveys in regards to understanding the data and understanding their experience. So I do think that there is an opportunity for that. And I do think that the students now that are involved in the momentum are engaged in some of that conversation, because most of the students that we do get in the panel during those student voices are primarily leaders of our campus. But definitely it is, an idea that I think, thank you for that, that we should definitely think about, because those remarks and feedback we get from our students, at least since I've been at the Anza, through the student voices, has given us a chance to really elevate our work and sort of revisit our best practices. Thank you.
Hi, yeah, first I want to say thank you. Amazing projects. The tail end, I have a couple questions that are very different in iteration. So one is for Dr. Koroma. In terms of the development of financial aid packages for study abroad, is that organized through the administration or through financial aid directly? Is there a point person that you've set out to do that work? Is it in conjunction with foundation or other? Obviously, it's a previous question about funding. And so just thinking about bringing financial aid into this global studies process, I think is really fascinating. So I'd like to hear more. And then my second question on a very different topic is really about your oral history and testimonials project, Dr. Ramos. Like in terms of the selection at the tail end, because I'm thinking about it as a Black Studies faculty member, as a history faculty member, and a need really for oral histories and testimonials for our students for the long term. I saw that your project is going to be housed at the California History Center as opposed to your local college, I'd like to hear maybe a little bit more about that selection and how accessible it is, and whether, your local faculty are aware of that, right, as an option to be used with their curriculum. Yeah.
All right. Yes. So financial aid is indispensable when it comes to study abroad. I have an experience. I worked at a 4-year university, before coming to the community colleges in financial aid. At the 4-year, study abroad is very big. So I got a lot of experience working with students, various students going to study in Europe. So at the college, at my college now, Laney College, I'm the point person. And there are techniques. One of the first things is students should start the process very early. They should start very early. They should do their applications. Most of the students qualify, especially if you are low income. Obviously, if you're high income, that puts you out of the financial aid bracket for anyone. But our students, especially students who are in the Umoja program, 75 to 80% of them are low income. So there's a whole set of planning process. And in financial aid, we have federal programs, we have state programs, very little institutional program at the community college level. But there's what they call the Gilman Scholarship. There are also specific scholarships that are tied or based on study abroad. So it's really guiding those students from the early part of the year. And here at Laney College, we hope to make this trip in the summer of 2026. So starting from the summer of 2025 into the fall of 2025, we hope to engage the students and tell them, how they manage the process. Make sure that you stay in your classes. You have to enroll in this number of classes per semester. The plan is to manage them until they arrive at that summer, the window, or just entering late spring, entering in the summer, for them to maximize their financial aid. So that's really the goal. But I'm the point person, and there's a lot of need to hold those students. And usually at the community college level, there's always one person in the office. If it is not the director, it's the assistant director that understands that. And it's good to advise the students accordingly, because if you go to the financial aid windows, most times they are you have student workers or maybe staff members that don't understand the process very well, and students could be discouraged. So the international office should engage the director, assistant director, because it's a specialized part of financial aid, and it's important for those linkages to be made. But not all financial aid staff members might understand that. But at the assistant director level is what I would advise in terms of engaging for students to maximize their aid.
So thank you for that. I realized I didn't explain or wasn't able to articulate this during my presentation. So the California History Center at the Anza College is actually on campus. It's in the heart of our campus. It's been there for so long, and actually it is somewhat like a hub for a lot of our community education for local history, as well as service learning, volunteer work. So it's very much accessible to our students and faculty. It is the uniqueness of my role is that as the largest division, I also, that's also part of sort of my area of supervision. So right now, the chair of our humanities department, or also the faculty director of the California History Center. So it's on our campus, yeah.
So I have a question for Elvin, because you have a very, very ambitious lineup of like 20 speakers throughout the course of one semester. I wonder how you solicit their submissions, and are they coming to campus? Do you make a big deal out of that? Like, do you set up like a chair and a recording studio in the middle of the campus while they speak, or do you have a special evening that everybody knows about, that it's taking place every so often, and somebody very interesting is always going to be there to share their story? How have you made this to be an institutionalized program, part of your fabric and bloodstream, but also how do you manage to solicit all these people to come and share this fascinating stuff?
Yeah, good question. I have been, my experience has been in the East Coast as well as here in the West Coast. So I am very much still in tune and in touch with a lot of colleagues from academia as well as in the global communities that I'm engaged in. So when I started making phone calls in the beginning about sort of this framework that we have, I think it was easy for people to say yes to me, especially during the COVID years, right? Part because we were trying to connect with each other, right? And a lot of them, they're all part of sort of my spider web of life, right? Some of them went to college with me and now part of my colleagues in other areas. And some of them are my former students. Some of them are local faculty in our community colleges. So I think the ask for me hasn't been very much of a challenge. And then when we got the grant from the foundation, we were able to really scale out a little bit. The charge was that this was going really well in your division. Therefore, can we continue this to scale out all throughout campus and all throughout district? So I think that that was been, we've been grateful about sort of the openness of, individuals coming into the series. And ultimately, when we reached back to them and said, we wanted to, you came to us for 90 minutes talking to us about this particular topic virtually or on campus, we want to bring you back to interview you. They were receptive for that. And they were really pretty much supportive of this work. And I was very surprised with that. I think the 20 that we selected was very much intentional, that we wanted to make sure that their topic is definitely geared to what sort of the objective of our EPIC fellowship, right? So I think right now we're looking forward to record them, their stories again through the podcast. But we want to make sure that the original stories that they shared with us back in 2020 or whatever year they may have came to the Anza is also captured by the book volume.
This is for Elvin. Can you just give us some examples of some of the topics that are going to be recorded, so that we have a sense of how we can integrate them into curricula? Because it sounds like that's ultimately what you're hoping we do.
So we have a couple of individuals that I would say definitely shared sort of their cultural growth experience as an immigrant, right? And I think that those topics were intentionally selected because of that. During this time, we were also trying to grow our ethnic studies program on our campus. So that's really special for us. Another thing is about really messages for our students about going out there and experiencing the world, right? So I believe we have 2 individuals that are part of this 20 that really were, in many ways, like many of us, has been all over the world and has really made an impact back to their community. So I would say social justice, social change, global experiences, and really personal life stories, immigration stories, and success stories that doesn't really necessarily sometimes fall into sort of where we're trying to gear it for the faculty, but it really is like inspirational stories for our students. Yeah.
Richard. So I don't need a mic, but as I was hearing a couple people speak about international guest lecture series, and specifically Stacye, I started thinking about that. Is there a way that we can compensate someone for giving a guest lecture virtually? And I'm thinking about our processes. You need like a tax ID form and a bunch of signatures and stuff without sending like Bitcoin or something like that, But there's a way that we can process, and this might be a Stanford thing also, because I know you probably have a lot of international speakers more than. Or does everyone have to volunteer for it, which is easy, but some of the people I'm thinking about, I would like to compensate for like an hour or whatever. Is there a way to do that?
I'll just say this. When we began the lecture series at the Anza, we definitely wanted some volunteers because we didn't have any money, right? And then at the moment where the discussions were becoming sensitive and really real, we thought that people's experience, no matter where they are in their life, should be compensated. And I think that's part of the reason why we came to the president at that time, that whether they're coming in person, well, during that time, they weren't coming in person, there was virtual. We wanted to give them a little bit of sort of an appreciation for their time, for sharing their stories. But it has been a lot of work in terms of paperwork, and even losing the funding, we try as much as possible to use our local budget in compensating individuals who comes.
Just a follow-up. Do you have to do like a W-9 tax ID?
Oh, yes. And Leslie, our senior admin assistant, sorry for all of that. So, but you've been so helpful.
That might be a lunchtime conversation, because I think of our system here at Stanford, and it's not necessarily easier. So, might be a further conversation about what that might look like. I think that there are creative different ways of honoring people's time, and thinking about how to engage them in experiences. I'm hoping we were coming close to time here, and if you have more questions, hopefully during the lunchtime you can engage with our EPIC Leaders Fellows. I do want to say that there are a few themes I just wanted to point out from all of the talks that you've heard, the presentations today. And one is really having a clear goal and knowing that that goal can shift, right? The goal, you have a clear goal of where you want to go, but how you get there, we all know is a windy path. It's not a direct line. And so being open to what that might be. The second one is really thinking about the system, right? So you hear that even in all the colleges here, there are smaller colleges and bigger colleges, bigger towns, smaller towns. Who are the students? Who are we serving? How are we doing that? How are we thinking about what we do in terms of programming and access and opportunity for the students that we are serving? And lastly, leadership is a human endeavor. It's not a title. It's not a role. It's about relationships and really thinking about who do we collaborate with? Who do we bring on board? Who do we talk to? When do we talk to them? And you heard a lot of that in the presentations today in the different approaches for their projects. So we thank you for your time. We hope you enjoy your lunch. And then, Kristen, are there any announcements that you want to make before we head on to lunch?
Yes, thank you again to you, Tammy, and to all of our speakers, and of course to the audience for your very insightful questions and comments. I just wanted to mention that we are really delighted to have the Global Educators Network board members here. Marina Broder, Daimura Denahi, Danny Redding Lapuz, Tomas Stanek, Don Uiberetta, Nancy Willett, and Angela Yang, and they are kindly excited to engage with you and to reflect on what's been shared this morning and some other opportunities to really empower community college professionals in advancing global education. So could I ask the Gen board members to raise your hands so you could identify yourselves if you don't know them already? Thank you. So we encourage you to introduce yourselves to them over lunch, and we will see you back here at 1:15. And thank you again to everyone.